Hello everyone, I'm Justin Raffa, the Artistic Director of the Mid-Columbia Mastersingers.
And I'm Nick Wallin, Music Director, Conductor of the Mid-Columbia Symphony.
And we're very happy to take a moment to share with you some thoughts, some reflections on the work that we've done. We are collectively celebrating our 10th anniversaries here in the Tri-Cities in our respective positions with our organizations. We wanted to capture this moment, sort of reflect on the work that we've done, share with you a little bit of the project we're doing this very weekend.
It means that we're not nearly as young as we think that we are. I just have to point that out, that we've actually been doing these jobs for 10 years already.
I have a lot more gray hair in my temples than I did. So,
I know the feeling.
So I think that's a good starting place. Let's sort of think back. It was summer of 2008 that I moved here to the Tri-Cities, and we were hired concurrently. What were you doing 10 years ago that brought you to this position with Mid-Columbia Symphony?
Yeah, so I was hired in May, June of 2008, something right around there. But of course the previous season had been a season with a search with, I think, 4 finalists for the music director position, and actually I had conducted the very first concert of that season. I want to say it's back in October of 2007. I was still a professor up at Washington State University, up in Pullman.
Go Cougs.
Go Cougs. I still root for the Cougs when they're not playing any of my other teams. But I was music director of the Washington, Idaho Symphony up there, and I was interested in just sort of spreading out and seeing what other opportunities were available in the Northwest. So I applied for the job, and I loved the people. I loved the sense of community that I got from the board members, from the people on the search committee. I made friends quickly I knew some folks actually, just having overlapped either up in Moscow or up in Pullman. But it was a great time. I mean, it's incredible to me because my wife and I actually came to Robert's last concert, which I think was in May of 2007.
Robert Bodie.
Who
was our collective predecessor.
Right, because he was artistic director of Mastersingers and conductor of the Mid-Columbia Symphony.
Right.
And I remember that my wife was very, very pregnant with our second child, and now he's about to turn 11 in a couple weeks. So life moves quickly. What were you up to 10 years ago?
Sure. I was just finishing up my master's degree in choral conducting at the University of Arizona. Go Wildcats. And that sort of awkward next step is like, great, who cares? You know, master's in choral conducting, get in line. And so my partner Molly and I at the time, we were surveying what were our next steps, and we sent out applications all over the country. We sort of made this agreement that if one of us gets a gig, that's where we're going to go. Someone will lead the way. She was looking at young artist programs, apprenticeship. She's the real singer between the two of us.
Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, wow. And so we just sort of looked everywhere, and I was really more interested in working with adults. I had taught high school, public school, high school choir for a couple years down on the border of Mexico in Bisbee, Arizona. Wild and crazy 3 years of my young professional life. But we found this write-up, this gig in the Tri-Cities in Washington State. We had never spent any time in the Northwest. I didn't know much about Washington other than Seattle and rain and, you know,
right.
Apples, cherries. So I sent my materials, and they responded that they were interested, and the leadership of the choir at that time was evident to me that they were wanting to move in a very different direction. They had just rebranded the organization. They had renamed it Mid-Columbia Mastersingers. I wish I could claim to have been a part of that decision. I was not.
I have often wondered about that because I knew that the name had changed, but you're not taking credit for that.
I can't.
Okay.
But it was clear that there was a new mission and vision that organization was taking on, and obviously they were willing to give a 26-year-old the opportunity to be the artistic director and help shape that mission. What we did help contribute to was the beautiful logo. Molly Holleran did that work for us. Not everyone knows the breakdown of our logo. This is the 5 lines of the music staff that she took, and then the 3 wavy lines in the middle represent the 3 rivers of our area. Columbia, the Yakima, and the Snake, because they all converge here.
Right.
Clever. So we've kept that brand for 10 years. But yeah, I was eager for a job, was eager for the next step, and having grown up in the East Coast in South Jersey outside of Philly, living in Central Jersey doing the Princeton thing for undergrad, going to the Mexican border in Arizona for my first teaching job, and then in Tucson for grad school. It's like, yeah, let's go check out the Northwest and see what opportunities are here.
And then the thing that's funny is that in addition to being artistic director of the Mastersingers, then as soon as you moved here, you applied for a staff position with the symphony. And so that's when we really, I remember actually, I think I met you when we were running auditions in the summer of '08, and I think that you had just been hired by the board.
Right.
What was your title?
Concert manager.
Concert manager, yeah. So we were running auditions at some point during the summer of '08 to get ready for that first season of mine. And it was fun from the beginning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I happily share with people, because some folks get spooked talking about money. The board of the Mastersingers, when I was hired in '08, were about a $30,000 annual operation. You know, pretty small scale community choir model for this size community. So out of 30,000, they paid me 4 my first year. It was more of a stipend because Dr. Bodie was a professor at Whitman in Walla Walla. So, you know, he had full-time employment where this was sort of more auxiliary for him. Well, I'm now moving here, I'm bringing my life here, and I told the board, man cannot live on $4,000 alone. I can for a year, but I need your help in finding other compensation. And so they pointed me to the symphony, said they're hiring a new director, and they need some administrative support. So I'm really happy that worked, not just for me financially, but certainly in getting to know you and building, sort of reviving, I think, a relationship between the 2 organizations.
Right, yeah. And so obviously then we started working together on things, but naturally that meant that we were hanging out and becoming friends too, which is, it's a pretty unique thing. And again, the timing, it's just everything worked out exactly right at that time. That
you can build relationships from scratch, you know.
Yeah.
Going into these positions brand new, and, you know, I'm trying to be supportive of what the work is that we want to achieve. It feels like what you living in Pullman is really foreign to me. Like, that feels like a long time ago. When did you move?
Remember, we lived in Moscow, Idaho.
Yes.
I taught in Pullman. We lived in Moscow. Not that big of a deal. I'm not trying to create a rivalry or anything like that. But so for my first season as music director, then that '08-'09 season, still living up on the Palouse and driving down for rehearsals. And it was after that very first season that we moved back to Chicago. So now for the past 9 years, ever since the 2009-2010 season, I've been commuting from Chicago.
I don't think we did anything collaboratively with the 2 groups in our first season. I think that 2008-09 year, you know, I was certainly finding my way, really understanding the makeup of the choir, what was possible, or what were the boundaries, how far I could push them. And I know I way overprogrammed my first season. When I look back at that, it's like, what was I thinking? Well, I know what I was thinking. I was out of grad school. I was like ready. I was so eager to dip into this repertoire. Benjamin Britten's A Boy Was Born we did on my first holiday concert. That was December 2008. And I want another crack at that piece. I love that piece dearly, but whoo!
Yeah, the first year, I remember from a programming standpoint, since I had been hired in May or June, and we wanted to get a season together really pretty quickly. So we programmed I think we programmed 4 subscription concerts.
That sounds
I don't
right,
know.
yeah.
I don't even know if we did a holiday concert that year.
I don't think so.
I think maybe we did not do a holiday concert that year.
Right.
And I didn't program any big symphonic choral pieces because I just didn't know what the resources were going to be like. But then, going into the second season, being the young and crazy and idealistic guys that we are, we said, let's just start with something sort of modest.
Because I was really happy to learn that you have a choral background.
Yeah.
Not all conductors in the orchestral realm have that experience. So you used to sing in a boys' choir yourself.
Yeah, my voice didn't change. I was saying this to the Mastersingers. My voice didn't change until about 9th grade. So I sang all of that, a lot of big choral repertoire as a boy soprano up until I was 13, 14 years old. And then I've always sung in choirs when I've had the opportunity. Big choirs, the choral union for the University of Michigan Choral Union when I was living in Ann Arbor. When I was at Interlochen as a student, as a tuba player, I joined the sort of community chorus. We sang a few big things. So yeah, and I love choral music and I love opera. It's like obviously if people have been coming to our concerts for the past 10 years, they know that I do because we've done something. We've done something every year then, at least one since that second season.
I was really eager to expand the Mastersingers into that realm. Prior to when I was hired, they went by the name Consort Columbia. And when Consort Columbia was founded in 1986, when I was 5, their vision was a sort of smaller, selective auditioned chamber group that really weren't doing the larger scale projects. In fact, in the bylaws when I was hired, there was a cap on the number of singers that could be in the organization. Mm-hmm. So once these opportunities started making themselves available, there was also, one of the big churches in town, Central United Protestant Church in Richland, they had a tradition of doing choral orchestral works. They had this auxiliary group. They often did a Handel Messiah around Christmas time, and then a variety of projects in the spring.
Yeah, I want to say they did a Brahms Requiem.
That's right. Yes.
I think the first
Kari
year.
Reagan.
Yeah.
Because I popped into their dress rehearsal and Kari was there singing the solo.
Yeah.
But
and that was, I think, that 08, 09 year. Maybe that they did that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had just come to town, but that group was going away. That was transitioning into something different. So again, there was an opportunity to do choral orchestral works, certainly in the absence of that group who were providing those opportunities for singers, for volunteer amateur singers. So again, the timing of all this was really great. And so we started, pretty conservatively.
Yeah, with something very safe.
Very
small,
carefully.
Small, yeah. We're joking, of course, because the first piece that we decided to do was the Verdi Requiem, which is a just gigantic, fantastic, but gigantic piece that is, that makes up a program by itself and involves, not only a large symphonic chorus, but a large orchestra. I remember we bought a new bass drum for that because there's a critical bass drum, several critical bass drum strokes. And I said, the bass drum that we have is not the bass drum that we want to hear when you're doing the Verdi Requiem. A whole bunch of extra offstage trumpets and all of these kinds of things. So yeah, we just decided to go for it. Jump in.
We were doing all the concerts at the Three Rivers Convention Center in Kennewick. That also feels like eons ago.
It was, yeah.
Even that first season, that first 8-9 season, is when the symphony officially moved in.
Right.
They had tried out some concerts there. Was your audition concert in that facility?
It was, yeah. That during that season, the 07-08 search season, that was in the convention center as well.
And I remember because that was a big decision for the leadership of the symphony at the time.
Right.
They wanted to try to offer a different experience to their audience. The convention center is a beautiful space. That lobby, the opportunity to serve refreshments, including alcohol.
Right.
Just trying something different.
And the ability to be able to book particular dates well in advance and know that you have everything absolutely lined up.
Right. The ongoing scheduling challenges surrounding Richland High School's auditorium in particular.
Yeah.
And I think we were there for 5 years or so at the convention center. It was at least. Yeah, because my last concert as staff for the symphony, we were still in that space.
That would have been May of 2013, I think.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I think so.
8, 9, 9, 10, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, 5 years.
Yeah, 5 years. Plus the search year, 6 years.
And so when we did that Verdi Requiem, that was spring of 2010.
Yes.
We, now understanding the lack of acoustical integrity in a convention center, in a convention hall that was never designed for that kind of unplugged acoustic classical performance.
That was the first time we did sound reinforcement.
Sound reinforcement, yes.
Meaning not amplified music, but acoustic music that has a bit of amplification so that it can be broadcast through the room, a room that wasn't designed, of course, for that kind of performance. So we tried it.
Although when the audience walked in and you saw, do you remember? There were microphones everywhere.
Yeah.
It looked sort of like a rock concert.
Yeah. Sometimes you go to classical concert. You can go to one in Chicago, hear the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, see all the microphones there, and it's generally because they're making a recording, right? It's like not because they're actually doing any kind of amplification, but you sometimes see that much equipment when you go to the concerts, if they're making live recordings of particular pieces. But yes, it looked obviously quite a bit different for anyone in the hall.
And I was, in that capacity, I was really anxious about the audience's response. Even just seeing that visually could create a perception for them that this is not going to sound very good, or going to sound overly amplified.
Or are they just playing a recording through these speakers and and just kind of faking it? Which, of course, we weren't doing.
And we tweaked that sound amplification significantly in successive seasons, where we finally got it down to, I think there was just one big microphone structure that hung from the ceiling that was capturing the sound.
Right.
Thanks to our friend Gary Ford of Ford Audio. Thank you, Gary.
Yes.
And your company for really figuring that out for us.
Right.
So from Verdi Requiem, spring of 10?
Yeah, so then, as we were talking about the next season, you said to me, I remember this very clearly, he's like, I really want to do something British. I was like, yeah, okay, let's do something British. So that's when we did Vaughan Williams' Sea Symphony.
Symphony number 1, yeah.
Symphony number 1. And I remember really getting into, although it's British music, right, the text in that piece is actually written by Walt Whitman. Yeah. And I remember just really getting into the text because it's relatively complex poetry that Vaughan Williams set. And coming to an understanding of what that text really meant for me took a long time. Much more of a challenge for me than coming to a Requiem text or something like this, with which I'm much more familiar.
Right.
But wow, what a cosmic piece. Just absolutely incredible piece. Again, it's like we were not playing it safe. Not playing it safe.
I distinctly remember the end of the third movement of the scherzo, where the choir hangs on for a minute and has like an extra punch after the orchestra falls out. It's wonderful music. Because what I really want to do, and I think you also, we've talked about Benjamin Britten's War Requiem, but we keep shelving and saving that piece.
Saving that for the new Performing Arts Center.
At Vista Field. So Arts Center Task Force, we're so eager for that facility to be built, because there are a number of pieces that really require the right venue.
Yeah.
It just, and I hate to say I don't want to sacrifice it in a different space, but there's just certain needs, just physical, the size, the scope of some of those works.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that we had that toward the top of our list at some point. I don't know, not in 2011, but maybe 2012, 2013, something like this. We were really thinking about it. But as you said, we just, let's wait until we have a better situation in terms of venue. Just from a design standpoint, from a space and acoustic standpoint. Let's just wait.
So we've held the Britain War Requiem. We're holding on. It's coming. And then going into 11-12 season, it's like, you know, we'll hold off on the War Requiem, but let's do an Orff Carmina Burana.
Right. And that was also when we started, that was the first time that we did the sort of, not trade, but just combined resources, and it was performed once in the Tri-Cities and once in Yakima.
Right.
So that Mastersingers had a chance to sing it twice, Yakima Symphony Chorus had a chance to sing it twice.
Right.
Pool those vocal resources. And then we invited the ballet into the mix too.
Right. Because even in your 10 years here, the symphony 90-some% of the time is doing one performance per project.
Right.
So
right.
It's nice when we get another opportunity, at least for the choir, in the time that they've invested. It was my predecessor, Dr. Scott Peterson, who was the course master of Yakima Symphony Chorus, a position that I was proud and honored to take on when he retired 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But he called me up and said, hey, we're doing Carmina and Yakima. Do you want in? We could really use you. And at that point I thought, well, gosh, you know, if I'm prepping the work just to take over there, we should do it here.
Right. Yeah.
So it was one combined choir between the two with separate orchestras, separate conductors, separate soloists?
Separate soloists,
Yeah.
Separate soloists.
Separate soloists. But we had, I think we had the more aesthetically pleasing performance when we invited our friends from Mid-Columbia Ballet.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Joel and Deborah Rogo have been great fans and allies. They sort of hold the record for being here the longest and creating wonderful art with their organization. Some 30-some years they've been involved with Mid-Columbia Ballet.
Oh, that took our performance to a completely different level, to have the ballet involved. I mean, in terms of the creativity, I didn't get to see much of it, right? Because most of it was occurring behind my back as I was conducting and trying to keep everything together. But what I did see just blew me away.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And
yeah.
of course, that was the one biggest, boldest experiment that we took.
Right.
Knowing that, you know, ballet dancers need space to really present their art. And we just couldn't envision that at the Three Rivers Convention Center. So what is a bigger, bolder space? Well, let's try next door. Let's go into the Toyota Center, into the hockey rink.
Well, and we were just talking about this the other night, but we couldn't get into the Toyota Center until the actual day of the performance.
Yeah,
so we had a rehearsal. I'm sure we had a rehearsal that week on Tuesday night, probably with me and the chorus and piano. Mm-hmm. And then we had rehearsal on Thursday night at the convention center. And we had rehearsal Friday night at the convention center. And when that rehearsal ended at 10 p.m., then we were able to move into the convention center, or into the Toyota Center. And we had about 12 hours to get ready. And we were, the stage was built, but we were, and again, thanks to Gary Ford and a whole bunch of other people, we got the sound equipment in there, got the lighting in there,
right?
And we had one rehearsal in the space on Saturday morning to get ready for the gig.
I remember that Friday night rehearsal because we were actually in one of the side rooms. Yeah. We weren't even in the main hall. We were sort of cramped. And Deborah brings her dancers and they sort of walked it.
Yeah.
But it was like so little space, and the choir was just wall to wall, literally, like surrounded the corner of the room.
Yep.
Sardined. We borrowed standing choir risers from Dave Kazir at Columbia Basin College.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it's like, how are we just going to physically fit these people, and I can't have 100+ singers just all standing on the floor and nobody can see anything. And whew, it was exciting and high anxiety at the same time.
Yeah, we were under a lot of pressure, but again, because of a whole lot of people involved and doing a whole bunch of extra work.
Right.
I mean, that concert, I would say, over-delivered on a whole bunch of levels.
Absolutely.
I mean, especially with the addition of the ballet. I think, it's just like, it's certainly a highlight. I mean, without question.
Absolutely.
I mean, all of these are highlights, but that was a special night.
Yes. Carl Hedlund singing the tenor solo is just...
Yeah.
I didn't know he could do that. I mean, that's such a specialized role for a tenor.
Yep.
It was fun. So where did we go from there?
Well, the next season, 12-13, that was In Love and War season, and the final concert that year featured excerpts from Puccini, La Boheme, and also Mass in a Time of War by
Haydn. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I think those were the first. Were those the first opera excerpts I did with the orchestra? I think they were.
Yeah, I believe so. You did Barber's Knoxville.
That was in the fall of. That was my
the
very
season.
first concert.
Yeah.
That was my first concert as music director.
And that was Kari Reagan
With
again.
Kari.
We invited over from
Yep.
Seattle because
Yep.
she had already expressed interest to the symphony board and to the new leadership. Hey, I would love to, because she was a regular name here, because her mom lived here, right? Is she?
Yeah. Yeah.
So she was spending a lot of time here. Yeah, I think those were the first venture into opera. There was an opera company here in Tri-Cities when we started called Washington East Opera, which unfortunately was declining and wasn't able to sustain.
Right.
So there was another opportunity, because we know historically in talking with people like Reg Unterseher, there is a thirst for opera. There was a good audience.
Yeah.
They were doing regular productions, so that's when we started delving into that arena bit by bit.
And you got to sing a little bit.
That's right.
You got to sing a little bit on that.
Yeah.
Because we did a whole bunch of the end of Act 1.
Right.
And Mitzi Holmes was singing.
Then
as
Mitzi
Mimi,
Lundberg, yes.
And Adam
Shelton, yeah.
Adam Shelton, right.
My colleague from my master's program in Tucson.
Right. So he came to sing the tenor rep there.
Right.
And then we had to have the three buddies who yell up from the street. And I think, was it you and Jeremy?
Me, Reg, and Jeremy Erlin.
Yeah. And that was funny. In rehearsals, you guys were, I think they were trying to crack me up, sort of like extra cracking me up, like being super extra hammy from down below the stage, and calling to say, hey, what are you guys doing up there? Why don't you come out and
it's funny,
go out to dinner
that.
with us? Yeah. But I really wanted to do that transition music there. Because it really makes the act. It makes the act before they sing their last final duet. That little bit of contrast, really, it helps the drama at the end of that act.
Yeah. And it was fun to do Haydn because I don't always program a lot of classical era music.
Right.
Mostly because some of the best choral stuff is orchestrated, so we really need the symphony to take the lead on the programming, or there's a lot of works with organ, chorus and organ, and we have a major shortage of organs in Tri-Cities in terms of our venue challenges. So it was nice to get to just explore straight up classical style. And
yeah, it was. And the piece, Mass in a Time of War, it also fit the theme perfectly.
Right.
And we were we were exploring, right? You think about the Verdi and the Vaughan Williams and then Orff with the Carmina Burana. It's like, okay, let's try to find balance here too. Right. One thing that I know you always think about it, I always think about it, it's like finding the right balance of all this kind of repertoire to do for your audience.
Right. For your audience, for your performers.
For your players, for your singers.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Give them a variety of styles and experiences to enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And pieces that help teach them, in essence, where we are educators first, although I'm not a full-time teacher anymore. My undergrad degree is music ed, and I will always be a teacher. And so in the repertoire that we present, I want my singers to learn about those styles and how it's different, and sort of educate the audience on, what was going on in Haydn's day, what was the sound like, what was the nature of instruments, and try to give them those authentic experiences.
And that was the last concert at the convention center in May of 2013. Yeah.
And that was a big decision because we had signed a 5-year contract with the convention center leadership that we were going to make that investment, and then sort of going back to Richland High School, knowing the potential challenges around the scheduling,
mostly scheduling,
sort of losing the opportunity for refreshment sales at intermission, and that. But the audience has stayed strong, and there are people that we know there are people that weren't happy with the move to the convention center that came back when we were at the high school.
And we've gotten comments from people who, right after the move, there were some people also, it's like, but I really loved all of these other amenities.
Right.
Better parking, more restrooms.
Right.
Like you said, at intermission, have a refreshment, or after the concert, hanging out there. Yeah. It's a beautiful space.
Something the Vista Art Center will provide. All of that. There,
everything will be combined into one ideal place.
Yeah.
Yes. And the next season was a little bit different.
So now we're 13-14?
Right, 13-14. And so we did something sort of smaller, and yet, for me, a very, very personal piece.
Yes.
Because I had a sabbatical in the fall of 2012, and I'd been in Estonia for 6 weeks. My mother's Estonian, and I was doing research on Estonian symphonic music, in particular one composer whose name is Heino Eller. But while I was there, I went to an office in the capital, in Tallinn, that is the government office that supports musicians in the nation, right?
Did you just say a government office that supports arts and culture?
I want to make sure that this is clear, right? They will publish music for composers. They will, print parts and handle sort of rentals and distribution of music for composers. And I might add, when the fees come into that office for that service, 100% of the fees then go back to the composer.
Wow.
This office is subsidized by the government. They help to promote soloists as well. So if you're a violinist and you're Estonian, this office will help to promote your career.
Nice.
And they have a large collection of music and of recordings, and while I was there, I came across this piece, Kreiki Vihik, by
Krieg's Notebook.
Yeah, by Tõnu Kõrvits. And when I heard it while I was there, it's just like, this is something that I've been looking for.
Nice.
This is the kind of thing that I absolutely want to take back.
Right. I didn't know the composer. I certainly didn't know that repertoire.
Right. And so we did that. That actually ended up being on our January concert that year.
Mm-hmm.
It shifted around the timing of the season a little bit,
right,
because that piece was for choir and strings alone, other than one long
triangle on the last movement.
Yeah. But for string orchestra plus chorus, and so a little bit more of a chamber feel, although the piece itself, it certainly has, especially the counterpoint in the last movement, it has a symphonic quality to it.
Yeah.
But it is for strings and the choir. And I said that Carmina was a highlight, but that was also a highlight. In fact, I remember texting my wife after the concert and saying, I just had one of the greatest artistic experiences of my life.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I listened to the commercial recording of that piece a lot.
Yeah.
The melodic writing is really, I still have that last movement tune in my head, and
you had to learn some Estonian. The choir had to learn Estonian and sing Estonian.
Never had experienced the language, and actually Ronnie Vance was really helpful with that. He was a wind player that did a lot of work with us. He's living in Egypt right now with his wife.
About to move to Lithuania.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And wasn't it Jason Rose that played the principal clarinetist of the symphony? Wasn't he the triangle player?
Yeah. So I built that program then around the idea of folk songs, because this Estonian piece, these are old melodies that were written by an Estonian composer named Kirillus Kreek, and the piece was called Kreek's Notebook. As if like you took his sort of sketches, the folk-like melodies that he had written, and then Tõnu Kõrvits arranged these and composed them so that they would be written in a 21st century style. And so since that was folk material, I created the whole concert around the idea of folk music, and it ended up being a sort of smaller chamber orchestra.
Right.
We had again, since the longest piece on the concert was going to be strings alone, I don't think that we actually hired any percussionists for that concert, because I don't think any of the pieces had any percussion, other than the last movement of this piece
Right.
that had about a 5-minute long triangle roll with a gigantic crescendo and then diminuendo. And so Jason Rose very kindly, since he did have to play a little bit of clarinet on that concert, but not on that piece,
Right.
I said, well, Mr. Rose, you're an ensemble director. Maybe you could take this triangle roll, and he nailed it.
Yeah. Jason's been a great friend and ally of us, certainly with a move back to Richland High, because
Right.
he's on the music staff. He
Right.
is directing their orchestral and band program.
Yep.
So that has certainly helped, having that relationship, so that we can have easy access to the space. An important partnership.
Yeah, yeah.
Did we do something at the end of that season as well? Was that a double year?
No, the last concert of that season was Mahler Symphony No. 1.
That's right.
Yeah, and so since we had that big symphonic piece, what else? I think we did Smetna Mavlost to open the program. Right, and the Blumine movement, the movement that he removed from the symphony. So that was
Okay, yes, 'cause
orchestra alone.
that was the year that I did Howard Goodall's Eternal Light, a Requiem, because we had an opportunity, because Symphony didn't require us for their spring finale.
Right.
I partnered with Deborah again, with Mid-Columbia Ballet, and we did this beautiful work. Dave Kazir's choirs from CBC came and joined us for that. Small orchestra, strings, harp, keyboards, but when we did that at Richland High,
Yeah.
staged it with the dancers. So, because that's a piece that a lot of my singers and audience harken back to, one of their favorites. Every time we have dancers involved, I want dancers in everything now.
Certainly, the visual element is very important, especially as artistic as they are. I mean, they're fantastic dancers.
Yeah.
And Deborah is so creative with the choreography and the design. They've added a bunch. We had an outdoor concert one summer over in Walla Walla. At Waterbrook?
Waterbrook Winery, yeah.
I mean, we did it a couple summers, but I want to say the second summer we were able to involve some dance.
Right.
And when you can do those kinds of things, we were playing, I think, Tchaikovsky's Serenade for Strings.
That's it, yes.
We had some dance involved there. It's like, it's great. I mean, we love to do these kinds of collaborations and getting these different arts groups involved.
Right.
It's been fun to experiment with that.
Where are we, 14, 15
14, 15, that was our 70th anniversary season.
Yeah, for the symphony.
So we actually had two big gigs, because we did a complete Messiah, nearly complete Messiah, in
right.
December
Yes.
of that year, and of course Beethoven 9 at the end of the year.
Right,
So
Beethoven.
that 70th anniversary season, we did some very, very standard repertoire, but big celebration type pieces.
Yeah.
That Messiah, I remember, was pretty crazy.
Was that the Mozart orchestration, or was that
Yes.
a subsequent year that we did?
Yeah, we did the Mozart orchestration for that performance.
With the added winds and percussion.
Added winds, trombones get a little bit of stuff to
Yeah.
play. Few extra things, especially in the woodwinds, flutes and clarinets getting extra melodies and things like this.
Right.
I remember while we were doing it, our good friend Reg Unterseher standing in the bass section, and whenever an additional flute melody or something would be performed that's not part of the original Handel, he would always sort of smile and chuckle a little bit, like all of these different things. They seemed to be giving him a lot of joy to hear those little Mozart additions.
Speaking of Reg and joy, we should harken back because we did a couple holiday concerts in the early years.
We did some holiday concerts.
Like I think even year 2 was the first thing that we did.
Yeah.
Maybe even before the Verdi, because I believe that there was a holiday concert that we did first. And then we had set up the stage on the far side of the wall. We were experimenting with a setup at the convention center.
We did it 90 degrees off of the way that we, just to see what it would be like from a sound standpoint.
And we were looking for new, exciting holiday repertoire for chorus and orchestra, because, there's a lot of classic pieces that audiences love to hear, but we are supporters of new music and trying to find that variety. And Reg had that cool piece already written called Christmas Joy.
Christmas Joy.
That
four movements.
Got to perform.
Yeah.
And then you took that with you. You've done that in Evanston at your school?
At Lake Forest, we've done it a couple times. Thanks, Reg.
Yeah, thanks, Reg. And then, of course, Reg was not my immediate predecessor, but is a former artistic director under Consort Columbia.
Right.
And when I first moved to town, there were a number of people that I was told I had to meet, and Reg being one of them.
Yeah.
And he's certainly been a great friend and supporter. He came back to sing in the choir. He's been a great asset to the section.
Yeah.
And then a few years in, I said, we need to put you on the staff. So now he is our associate conductor, and he occasionally leads projects.
Mm-hmm.
He's prepped some things that the choir's done for you. He's our group voice teacher. He leads warm-ups for the choir. Been a great help for me in how the choir has developed in this past decade.
Yeah. Reg has been a very valuable resource.
Yeah.
I mean, without question. And going through even now what he does with warm-ups and stuff like this, as just I learn something every time I watch him do those
Nice.
warm-ups. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Beethoven 9 at the end of the season.
Yes.
And also, because can't ever just leave things alone, we did the Bruckner Te Deum.
Of course. Yes.
Or no, we did Psalm 100, right?
Yeah, the psalm, right.
Uh,
Because Beethoven's only, what?
Beethoven, for you guys, you only sing the last movement.
Right. It's
And
not a lot of material.
Right. So we did the Bruckner.
Who's your favorite composer?
Yeah, one of my absolute favorite composers, right? And this is part of the process, right? It's like introducing composers, introducing styles to the orchestra over 10 years, right? You get to the point where it's like, I wanted to do some Mahler, right? So we ended up doing the Symphony No. 1 back in 2014, because that's very, very challenging repertoire, but at that point in the development of the orchestra, I thought this is a step that we need to take. So introducing Bruckner to the orchestra was a joy for me.
Oh.
We had some other small projects in there, I mean, a little bit of that. I don't remember the timing of all of this stuff, but when we did Holst's Planets, that involves the offstage
The
women's
women,
chorus.
right, and that's something that Reg
Yeah.
prepped.
Right.
Yeah. And he devised this technique of them singing into their folders to create even more of that ethereal, distant offstage sound.
Right. And maybe that was the next season. Maybe that was 15, 16. But the big stuff at the end of in May of 2016, we did the concert that I called Faith, right? And so we opened with Stravinsky's Symphony of Psalms, and then we had a friend of mine, great friend of mine, Kate Carter, violinist. She came out and played the Bloch Baal Shem, and we did the Hovannes, Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, and the Poulenc Gloria. So there was plenty for you guys to sing on the Stravinsky and the Poulenc, and that got the boys choir involved.
That's right. So you mentioned the Holst. It was the formation of needing female singers, of needing the women's choir, that we ran with that and actually created a new tier, a new ensemble for the Mastersingers. So it was the need for the Holst Planets that led us to that, because the women had such a great experience.
Yeah.
and my singer roster is always teetering on the edge of, could use a couple more tenors and basses.
Right.
But that was really the start of our women's choir.
Yeah.
And our boys' choir was pretty new at the time. They're just finishing their 4th year now.
Yeah.
But what a great opportunity for those young voices.
Stravinsky wanted treble youth voices, and so that was a natural fit on that concert. Plus Poulenc, which is just a great piece. That was fun. That was a challenging concert, although I'm pretty proud of my programming on that one too.
I have a fond place for the Poulenc Gloria. That's repertoire that's very special to me, and just so awesome that we've got an opportunity to do all of this, because it's, as I often tell my choir, it's not the norm that the chorus director, the chorus master, has such a good working relationship with the conductor. Sometimes it can be sort of top-down, very hierarchical, and the chorus master doesn't have the opportunity to speak with the music director about programming.
Right.
Where I'm really grateful that we've been able to do that, and we can have just normal, relaxed conversations. Hey, what do you want to do next year?
Yeah.
And what
do you think about this piece?
Yeah. I've never had to vie or arm wrestle you into doing the choral orchestral repertoire. It's been great for me, great for the choir, and and great for the community.
Yeah.
No one else in this Tri-Cities metro area is offering that repertoire, giving those opportunities to our musicians, and then the experience for the audience.
So then a year ago,
almost there.
A year ago, we did the Wagner and the Lord of the Rings and the Star Wars music, which ended up sort of having you guys sing in made-up languages by Tolkien, made-up languages by John Williams, and Duel of the Fates, Phantom Menace stuff, and then of course singing in German on the Wagner. But I teach a course at Lake Forest College called Wagner, Tolkien, Star Wars, and it's a music class, and we investigate the music from all the Star Wars films, and John Williams's use of the leitmotif system that he picked up from Wagner. Wagner's the one who created that back in the 19th century. And so these three, Wagner's Ring and his other operas, and then the films by Peter Jackson with the music by Howard Shore for Lord of the Rings, all of this stuff is music that I listen to and that I study quite a bit. And so it made for a great concert for us. And you guys got to sing a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I equally love that music, as you know, and
right.
It will also be very memorable to me that we managed to get one of the new movie theaters in town, the Fairchild Cinema in Queensgate, the newer one in Richland, that on a whim I contacted them and said, hey, your hometown symphony and choir is doing this repertoire. Is there any possible way that we could do some private screenings of these movies to build excitement, just sort of remind people, at least some of our performers, how this music works together, because it's absolutely brilliant movie scoring. I mean, it's just such awesome writing.
Yep.
And we got the green light, so we got to see those movies again on the big screen. It's one thing, we can, I think some of them are streaming on Netflix now.
You can watch it on Netflix, at least Fellowship, I think.
But to get to see it again in the big screen, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Very fun.
Yeah. And then this season, well, we've done one big thing, which was back in December for the holiday concert. We did more opera. Again, I love opera, and not an opportunity to perform a lot of opera. We've had plans even to do other things that haven't worked out yet.
We're not hurting for ideas.
We're not. We're talking about saving Britain's War Requiem, but we've been trying to figure out how to do Johann Strauss, Die Fledermaus, something around New Year's Eve kind of time. That we're still trying to figure out exactly how to do that. But we did Menotti, Amal and the Night Visitors, back in December. Just a charming, absolutely lovely one-act opera. Just in a concert version, no staging, but that was great fun on the first half of the program. And then just part one of Messiah, It had been a few years since we had done it, and of course it's...
we take turns with
Yeah.
who presents part of Handel Messiah. We know that it's a staple in repertoire, certainly in the United States. A lot of communities that share that piece around the holiday, the Christmas holiday in particular.
Right.
And sort of hearkening back to that oratorio course and orchestra from Central United Protestant, when their annual presentation ended, there was a chance for us to try to keep that alive at some level and share with the community. So sometimes Walla Walla Symphony's done it, and they bring it here for us. So it's nice that we can rotate it,
Right.
and not.
And when we did it last December, then we weren't doing the Mozart version, so it's like nice pared down sort of Baroque performance practice. Ends up being actually a very different expression of the piece, but I mean equally valid. Some people might prefer one to another, but it's like sometimes you just offer something slightly different.
Okay. I'm surprised it's been 10 years before we did Menotti. I mean,
oh yeah.
I'm
well, we had talked about it. I mean,
it's come up.
I think even when my sons were still boy sopranos, I think I had some little fantasy that one of them might want to sing a mall. Now I have at least one changed voice and one on its way.
Right.
And of course, we have something coming up tomorrow.
This weekend, tomorrow night.
So
the end of the 2018-19 season, the end of this.
I think you got 1 year ahead of us there, didn't you?
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm on. Yeah, part of me is already the end of the 17-18 season.
Right.
The end of this 10-year.
The end of our 10th anniversary. And so, for one, and if you've been to our concerts, you know this. Justin and I both like to do new music. Both like to do, even if it's not brand new music that has been written recently and is, works of living composers. And so to finish off this 10th anniversary season, we thought, hey, we should commission a piece. And so we were bouncing around the idea of a couple different composers, and especially since we wanted this piece to celebrate his 10th year, my 10th year, and also our friendship and work together, we wanted the piece to be for chorus and orchestra, and ended up, again, with Reg's suggestions, thinking about composers, in particular choral composers in the Northwest, coming across the music of Karen P. Thomas, composer from Seattle. And I went to her website and listened to several of her pieces, and one piece in particular, Ancient Souls, that she wrote 10 years ago, roughly.
It was in 2000. It was premiered at the American Guild of Organists National Convention.
Right, so it had been commissioned, and she wrote it for chorus and organ. And when I listened to the recording on her website, I said, this is a great piece. And this organ part in particular, I think, would lend itself to being, to orchestration, to being written for a symphony orchestra. In addition, the text of the piece by a poet from Seattle named Molly McGee, the text of the piece, when I read it, resonated with me in terms of the types of things that we've talked about in terms of building community, building collaborations in the Tri-Cities, but also in a grander, larger scale, the idea simply of inclusivity and breaking down walls and bringing people together. And if we can do that through music, all the better. We can do it a whole bunch of different ways. But this poem, this text, this music, I thought, this is just right. So we commissioned Karen to orchestrate that piece, and we'll be doing the world premiere performance tomorrow night of the new version for orchestra and choir. We were rehearsing it. Last night was the first time anyone had ever played it, because we rehearsed it last night for the first time, and I'm really looking forward to that.
And then why not throw in a little bit of late 1930s Russian propaganda music?
Right. And so this is, again, it's one of these situations where, and now in your role as Yakima Symphony Chorus director, conductor,
chorus master,
absolutely, master. As in your role there, when Lawrence said that he wanted to do the Prokofiev, I think that maybe I'm putting words in your mouth. I think you thought this is another opportunity to have a really large chorus and let me ask Nick whether he wants to do it. And it's actually a piece that we had talked about in the past when we're in one of our brainstorming sessions. And it's a piece that I sang when I was younger and was singing in choirs and things like this. And so I said, yeah, I love the piece. It's great. I can figure out a way to do that. And then to sort of top off the concert, right, we're doing Rhapsody in Blue with Bill McKay. And Bill McKay, he was playing through his improvisations for me the other night. Sounds great on that piece, something that he did with the orchestra about 15 years ago. So in a really sort of special way, we're celebrating a whole bunch of different things with the concert, sort of the history of the concert and the sort of special skill of some of the local Tri-Cities residents, especially since Bill McKay was a young artist competition winner once upon a time with the symphony. We didn't even mention our soloist, Abby Wright, a friend of yours, but now a friend of ours, because she was actually our mezzo-soprano soloist when we did the Verdi Requiem back in 2010, so it's really special to have her here again and singing with us. And so we'll premiere some brand new music, we'll celebrate with the Gershwin Rhapsody in Blue, and then we'll close it off with this just sort of enormous and very striking, very colorful, very cinematic, movie score music that was this sort of Soviet propaganda, but is dramatic and really spectacular.
Saturday, May 19, 7:30 p.m., Richland High School Auditorium. Tickets available at midcolumbiasymphony.org and also for purchase at the door.
At the door.
We'll certainly hope to see you there.
And then we'll just have to figure out what we're going to do for the next 10 years.
Where does the time go?
I don't know, but there are at least 10 more years of projects that I know that we've brainstormed.
Absolutely, and it's like it just feels like yesterday that this all started. And,
right. Even just tracing through that in my head over the past however many minutes, just like, was that Beethoven 9 really 3 years ago? Yeah. It feels like it could have been last weekend.
Yeah. I'm grateful for the opportunities you've given me and to the choir. I love this partnership, and I certainly hope it will continue beyond our tenure. Who knows what the future holds. Everyone is replaceable in this life, but I hope we've helped to build something and sort of show the Tri-Cities how we can be a collective community, how things can come together. Because that's what art is about. Building community, relationships, friendships.
Yeah.
I know that you'll be my friend for life. Wherever we are, wherever we're working, I hope we'll work together.
Yeah.
Wherever life leads us.
Well, the thanks and the love go right back at you, buddy.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
I'll cheers you in my Master Singer mug and your Symphony mug.
Mid-Columbia Symphony.
Congratulations. Happy anniversary.
You too.
Thank you, everyone.